Now, creating these records is one thing, but querying the records is yet another. And in fact, there are a couple of different ways in which you can go about querying for the different records that exist on a DNS server, some of which I assume you've probably heard of before. Let's take a look here at just a couple of the different ways in which we can do that. I'll bring up here a PowerShell prompt so that we can see just some of the regular batch ways, some of the shell ways that we can do it, as well as some of the PowerShell ways that we could accomplish the same tasks. The first of which is a command called nslookup. nslookup is one that I assume you've used before because it's been around for a very long period of time, and it's the tool you can use to actually figure out the different servers and services in an environment. So let's say we're looking for that server file1.company.pri. If I do nslookup for that machine, it should give me, as you can see here, the name and address for that computer. Notice here that we're receiving this information from our local host. So it's this local machine that's actually responding and giving us this information here for file1.company.pri. The same thing holds true if I'm looking for a CNAME. So our file server.company.pri would give us the response of what our alias is, what the actual server would be, and then what the address would be for that server. Now, like I said, you've probably used this before, but what many people aren't aware of is that nslookup actually has an interactive mode that you can use to identify more records or more details about records. You enter interactive mode by just typing nslookup. And then from there, if you hit the question mark, you'll see there's a much larger list of possible different settings that you can configure. One setting I would be aware of provides a way for you to identify the specific record types you may be interested in. And that's here, up here called type equals X. If I do the command set type equals, for example, SOA, this would allow me to get the SOA records for a particular machine. So let's say I'm looking for dc.company.pri. Well, now what I'm getting is not just the A record for dc.company.pri, but I'm also getting the SOA information as well. So here is company.pri. Here's the primary name server, the responsible mail server address that we entered in just a second ago. In fact, this should be G Shields, but I think I hit the cancel button. There's the serial number for the domain, which is used to help refresh the domain and keep the domain contents consistent across the different DNS servers, as well as the retry interval and the expiry for the domain. Also, our default TTL for the domain for the local cache as well. So as you can see here, if you set the type here to SOA or PTR or CNAME or MX records, this can help in providing you just a little additional information about the contents of the domain. Now earlier when we were talking about the way in which you could secure domains, we talked about the inability for clients to request the entire contents of the domain. And in fact, back here when we were configuring our domain, if I come back here to company.pri and view properties, we set our zone transfers here to only the servers that are listed on the name servers tab. So what this says is that only those machines that are on the name servers tab would be able to request the entire contents of the zone. This is a good thing because, as you can see down here, if I attempted to enter in company.pri, or actually ls company.pri, this is the command inside of the interactive view for nslookup that would potentially give you the entire contents of the zone. Now, we're configured at this point not actually to download that entire contents here because of how we've configured the zone transfer settings. But it's exactly this list of the entire domain that you want to try to prevent yourselves or prevent other clients from being able to do, because if you're a bad guy, this information would really help you identify, especially depending on how you name your servers, what kinds of servers and services may exist in this particular zone. Now, getting out of here for just a second, if I do exit, we can take a look at a couple of the other commands that exist to try to find out more information about the servers that exist in DNS. There is a PowerShell command as well called resolve DNS name that you can use, which, I don't know, I'm just used to nslookup, and this one's a little bit longer, but it is the PowerShell command. And it does give you just a little bit of additional information that nslookup doesn't provide, like not only the A record, but also the quad A record for this machine. Resolve DNS name gives me the TTL, gives me the IP address. I could actually, if we do help on resolve DNS name, we could take a look at all the different options that exist for that. So there's a little bit of additional functionality baked here into resolve DNS name if you're interested in using it. There is another PowerShell command here that you may be interested in as well called show DNS server cache. This will give you the contents of your DNS server's cache, which, as I'd mentioned, are all those records that have been resolved somewhere else, somewhere out in the rest of the internet, but that are kept here inside of your server's cache to speed up name resolution. Every time you attempt to go to a website, that information is kept in the cache for a period of time. So this cache information, again, can be something useful for you. Now, this information, unlike the ls command that we attempted to do a second ago, is considered to be public information. That's why you're probably going to see this information here in the way that you are, as opposed to having it hidden from you when we attempted to run that ls command just a second ago. You can also, if you are interested not in the server cache, but the local cache, there's a command called ipconfig, which you've probably also used before, because ipconfig provides the IP configuration information for a machine. But in addition to that, ipconfig has a switch here called display DNS that will give you the contents of the local DNS resolver cache. So this is the contents of that computer's local DNS resolution cache, and these records will exist in this cache until their time to live value expires.